Long before being a TV castaway became fashionable, I lived on a desert island with just one woman for company. I was 18 years old. The story was a media sensation. I made a video diary of my adventures, but this has never been seen until now. But life on my desert island wasn't quite the paradise I'd hoped for.
Rachel's taken a definite turn for the worse. This morning she woke up and she's having really great difficulty in breathing. I mean, desert islands are all great fun when everything's nice, but when something like this does go wrong, it can get pretty scary.
It's 12 noon, I'm Martin Popplewell. He's at home in Cumbria and he knows he might be the
For the last 6 years, I've worked as a journalist and a newsreader. My life is driven by deadlines and there's little time to think. But I'm taking time out and leaving all this behind to return to my desert island to be reunited with my girl Friday.
Why are there pieces of black tape on the desk? Is it
holding it together?
Oh.
This was where it all started. On the big screen. I was 15 when I saw The Blue Lagoon. It changed my life. I was spellbound by the vision of two teenagers growing up and falling in love in a tropical paradise. The scenes in this film inspired me to find my own desert island and live there with my own Brooke Shields. An obsession was born. Back in 1988, I was a schoolboy living in Cambridgeshire with my parents. After 3.5 years of tireless planning, I'd found an island and my dream was about to become reality. But finding my Brooke Shields turned out to be more of a challenge. I planned to go with my girlfriend, but 3 weeks before we were due to leave, she dropped out and I was forced to make a public appeal for a replacement.
You're looking for a young woman to go with you, aren't you?
I am. She doesn't necessarily have to be beautiful. She has to be practical and easy to get on well with.
I chose Helen Freeman. At 30, she was almost twice my age. We'd met just once before she joined my adventure. It was an enormous compromise, but nothing was going to stop me living out my fantasy.
It was almost like a chemical reaction, the same way as you meet someone and you think, oh, they're nice, I might like to marry them one day.
I'm one for adventures, and I heard about it on the radio. I heard Martin talking about it. So I phoned up for more information, and what he told me sounded so exciting, I thought I'd go for it.
This was just the latest twist in the story for my long-suffering parents who had lived with my obsession for years. They got used to letters from governments in far-flung corners of the world replying to my request to live on one of their islands.
We didn't think it was serious. I mean, kids have these dreams, don't they? Dreams don't usually come into reality. I suppose you realise that you're really going only about 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, when you realise that, you know, there was no turning back at that point. It was going to happen.
We just took this attitude, if we forget it, it'll go away. Just ignore it and it won't happen.
And you'll grow out of it.
Pardon?
You'll grow out of it.
Yes.
But I never did grow out of it. Now, 12 years on, I'm returning to my island, part of the Ilithi Atoll in the Western Pacific. This is a journey back to my teenage years, to the period of my life which defined me. Getting there the first time was a real long haul, and it still is today. 8,000 miles across 2 continents before landing on the island of Yap, part of a nation called the Federated States of Micronesia. When I first flew out here 12 years ago, I met Hilary Tachiliol, the government official who gave me permission to live on their islands. I'd never told him how old I was. He was horrified when he first met a fresh-faced 18-year-old.
I said, how old are you? I'm 18. Oh, I guess I almost fall off my seat. And I said, no, I have something to worry about. Next day, I called my people, and I told those people, we have to talk. He comes from a concrete environment, and he's going to face natures. He has to have at least a knife. Otherwise, I don't think he's going to survive. point out everything from the ocean that will hurt him. Tell him that there are sharks around also. Teach him everything. I'm really worried about it. They never experienced anything like that in the outer islands, you know, for people to come and do such thing like that. They think it's crazy.
Going back.
The final 100 miles to the Ilithi Atoll are in a 9-seater plane flown by local missionaries.
Oh my God! Meet Dalton Towers! First time that I made this journey, looking ahead to see if I could see my island for the first time, and all the time I was trying to look over the top of the nose plane of the aeroplane to see if I could see it. Well, you can see the island. Look, you can actually see the island now over there.
The islands of Ulithi, more than 30 tiny little specks of land strung round a massive lagoon. Only 4 are inhabited.
I haven't been here for such a long time, and you forget just how beautiful it is. It's just so stunning.
This is my island, Droleng, where I finally lived out my Blue Lagoon dream. Looking down, the memories flood back.
Mine's a bit really emotional. It's really crap, to be honest, crying when you see an island, but there's a lot of memories associated with that place.
We land on the only island with an airstrip. The next day, I set off on the 1-hour boat journey to my final destination, Droleng.
Well, that's it. That's Droleng. 2 minutes away, the end of an 8,000-mile journey. Several planes and boats later, we're nearly there. Welcome to Droleng. I'm back.
Beautiful though my desert island was, as a teenage castaway I was to discover that life here was nothing like the Blue Lagoon. The Pacific island of Patongos, 8,000 miles away from my home in Cambridgeshire. This was where Helen and I began our desert island adventure 12 years ago. We were taken here by a family from the nearby island of Mogmog. They taught us basic survival skills, showed us how to open coconuts, which fish to eat, and how to weave palm fronds to make a shelter. We took basic supplies of rice and flour, as well as machetes and saws. On the way, we met a school of dolphins. Their appearance is often considered a good omen, but in our case, they might as well have been sharks. Finally, after more than 3.5 years of planning, I arrived on my island. I'd love to say I was swept away on a wave of emotion, but already I had my doubts about what on earth I'd let myself in for. and the island certainly wasn't the unspoiled paradise I'd expected.
This water catchment system is a symbol of everything that was wrong about the island of Patongros. When I first dreamed of living as a castaway, I hadn't expected to find something like this on my desert island. The place is also covered with loads and loads of war rubbish. Then there was my relationship with Helen. Right, this is where we've decided to put the house.
I think it's what they call a residence with room for improvement.
It's very, very breezy. There's a constant breeze blowing through. Now, other parts of the island, it's very, very still, and it gets so hot. So we'll hopefully be a lot cooler here. Okay? Lots of mosquitoes, as everywhere.
Unfortunately, paradise doesn't come ready-made, and we hit the ground running, clearing an area for our camp.
Right, we are on our desert island. This is the first full day, and we're so rushed on our feet that we've decided to take a break. Yes, a break.
But behind the smiles, things weren't going well at all.
You do something and then
We decided
swat the mosquito.
we decided our daily plan, and that is get up about 11, siesta from 11 to about 3, have something to eat, and then go to bed.
And sleep. Well, sleep, of course, yes, not to bed to anything.
Yes.
Right, we've been here about 2 weeks, now, and everything so far is going really, really well. The island itself is just lovely. Well, last night we found out our island is not only inhabited by 2 human beings, but thousands of rats. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely place.
In my heart, I knew the island was inhospitable and our relationship wasn't working, but I couldn't admit my concerns to the camera.
And that represents the worst thing about this island. It's absolutely infested with mosquitoes. The moment we got out of our tents in the morning, we were surrounded by this awful black cloud of the things, and they bit us throughout the day. It was absolutely awful.
I'd just like to share with you one of the bad points, one of the low points of this experience. What do you think of that?
Once the mosquito repellent runs out, if it does run out, we're going to be in sort of dire problems. I passed my A-levels. So far, everything on the social front with Helen is going really well. Life is comfortable. Can you get out and turn the camera on? We have a huge this is going to be our first argument. Who's going to turn the camera on?
Things went from bad to worse. My desert island dream was becoming a nightmare.
Our conversations dwindled and dwindled to absolutely zero. Every time I started a conversation, it would be met with a kind of non-committal grunt. And whenever Martin started a conversation, it was usually something that didn't interest me in the slightest. I thought, I've had enough of this. And in the end, I said, what am I doing out in the middle of nowhere, taking part in some adolescent bourgeois dream? But really, we'd have been far more honest if I'd said, look, I think you're a jerk.
It's marvellous. Really, really brilliant.
After just 1 month on the island, Helen left. She returned to Britain and sold her story to a tabloid newspaper. I was the absent villain of this TV ad.
Helen Freeman, the girl who made a desert island dream come true. Girl Friday to a man 12 years younger. She struggled to survive against isolation, insects, sharks, and the jungle.
Find out what my life was like, alone with a man obsessed.
A lot of Helen's criticism seemed to centre on the fact that I was pursuing this childhood adolescent dream. Yes, I was pursuing a childhood adolescent dream, but I never made any secret of what I wanted to come out here and do. She also seemed to criticise me for my youth. But I was 18. She knew that. What did she expect?
Just in time, lady.
going to give up. I returned to Mogmog. Here I was adopted by a family and learnt about a totally different culture. The island is steeped in taboo and tradition. Society here is run by the local chiefs, and the population of 150 live a subsistence life on a diet of turtle, fish and coconut. Their only communication with the outside world is by radio. The islanders taught me more about how to survive. I earned my keep by teaching in the local school.
Disease.
My memories of life here on Mogmog are some of the happiest of my life. Rewarding, yes, but it wasn't what I came out to the Pacific for. I was getting itchy feet and I desperately wanted to have a second go, living as a castaway.
After 3 months on Mogmog, my desert island dreams got back on track. I'd written to Rachel Stevens asking her to join me and she'd said yes. She was my childhood sweetheart and the same age as me. And we wouldn't be returning to the mosquito-infested Potongros. I'd found another island, which really was set in its own blue lagoon. Droleng. It means the edge of the horizon because it's so remote. This time, I felt my dream would come true. Rachel was the girl I always wanted to share my island fantasy with. She was my Brooke Shields. One of our first tasks was to put up these solar stills. They make seawater drinkable, vital for our survival if it went long without raining. We also built this water catchment system to collect rainwater. And for that other basic human need, shelter, we put up tents which would be our home until we built our own house.
We've been here one night and the island is absolutely fantastic. I really couldn't be happier with it. My companion is just so much better than Helen. And I really feel this time it can actually work.
Well, we've certainly got a beautiful island here. There's so many different parts to it. First of all, you have the camp, which is pretty in itself. It's open space and it's kind of like got its own paths, natural pathways, which we walk around, which seems like it's meant to be our camp.
But our honeymoon with Droleng was to be cut brutally short.
The bad news is that Rachel is pretty ill. She's got pretty dire problems at both ends of her digestive system. And at the moment, I'm just hoping it's just with the heat and the great change in climate and the rest of it. But we're just going to have to keep a real close eye on her. Rachel has actually got worse. This morning, she was really incredibly weak. I had to help her down from the camp down to the shore so she could go to the toilet. So I must admit that right now I'm really a bit worried. She's really not very well at all.
Just at the moment, I don't exactly feel so good. Just missing home and food. Except I'm not hungry. Oh, I'm confused. It's just really worrying because my breathing's funny and my heartbeat is slow and strong and we don't know what's happening.
Rachel's taken a definite turn for the worse. This morning she woke up and she's having really great difficulty in breathing. And, well, Rachel was very scared. I was very scared.
Suddenly, we both felt incredibly remote and alone. We had no means of getting off the island, and weeks would go by between visits from the people of Mogmog. But thankfully, Rachel did get better.
I have good news. Rachel is better. She's just, well, going on in leaps and bounds. She woke up this morning, although she's still very, very weak, just from being ill, like we all do get. She's obviously much better. Her colour is back in her cheeks. She's getting annoying again. She's just much, much better.
As well as mystery illnesses, there was a volatile tropical climate. Typhoons with 100-mile-an-hour winds regularly pass through this part of the world. They uproot trees and even wash away parts of islands.
The other night we had some pretty strong winds, which meant that one of our solar stills was blown away and our water catchment system was blown down and a bit ripped up. So there's a little minor problem with fresh water at the moment.
We've totally, utterly and completely run out of water, not even a single drop. We've been running around the camp trying to pick up pools that have collected in old kind of like, you know, just any puddles that have collected. Since then we've had no rain for the last 4 days, and as you can see probably it's incredibly sunny, so it's making us even more thirsty. Things are getting a bit uncomfortable, I think is the best way to describe them. Your mouth is always dry and we're both beginning to feel a bit dehydrated, but then you're probably a lot more paranoid about it out here than you would be at home.
Both Rachel and I now are getting pretty thirsty, so we're just having to be very, very careful with the water.
We're now off into the jungle to hopefully find some reachable coconuts and some water, or some drink anyway. Finished!
Our struggle for survival was a daily one. The coconut is the most important tree. You can eat them, drink them, even make alcohol out of them. But it's not long before you get bored of them. I also use coconuts to catch coconut crabs. These are huge land-living crabs that come out after dark to feed.
Well, there happens to be none at this trap, but as you can see, this is what I got earlier on.
For me, coconut crabs were a vital source of protein. Back home, I never ate meat, but after months living in Ulithi, that had changed. Rachel, however, remained a strict vegetarian. Putting a live crab on a fire in front of her was a quick way to start a row.
There are two bits to a coconut crab that you can eat. Firstly, there's the claws, and then there's the pièce de résistance, which the locals here call the head, but it's actually the abdomen. Some people have described it as looking like a pussball, but it does actually taste really exquisite.
Then there was the ocean, full of fish, but also full of dangers. There were sharks and also stonefish, which can kill you just by touching them. Clams made a welcome change from crab, even if it was with coconut sauce. But our diet on Droleng was still incredibly dull.
It cannot be understated how much food, how much you can miss food.
Not being able to go just to a cupboard and get out what you want. It's so monotonous. I mean, it's kind of like, it's pretty flavourless as well.
Right now, what I would really kill for, or perhaps not do that, but I would really, really like, is baked potato in his jacket, some baked beans, and some cheddar cheese. That's what I would really just love to have right now. This long black thing here, it's quite white really, but it's not all fun here. There are urges which cannot be satisfied.
Well, I seem to be ill again, although this time it's not making me miserable, so things are a lot more pleasant, although perhaps the symptoms aren't. We've been looking up in some of our books to to see what it is I've got, and we've come to the conclusion we think it's something called Giardia, which is probably a terrible pronunciation, and I apologise. But anyway, I'd just like to quote how it's described in here. It's a person who has yellow, bad-smelling diarrhoea that is frothy, full of bubbles.
And there are mild intestinal cramps. The person farts a lot.
So as you can see, I'm such a pleasant person to know at the moment.
Have pity for me.
This is Rachel coming.
12 years on, my reunion with Troleng is about to be made complete. Rachel now lives in America, working as an ecologist. We haven't seen each other for years. Since leaving the island, she's been married and divorced.
Is that you, Rachel? Hello?
My life too has undergone some profound changes. Now we're going to be reunited on the island where we shared so much. 12 years after we left our island paradise, I'm being reunited with my girl Friday, Rachel, in the Western Pacific.
Hey, look, there's a shark. See? Shark? Just under the water. Be careful. It's just shot across there.
How you doing?
Very well.
This is really strange. Really, really strange.
You are strange.
Why am I strange?
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Has it changed?
I am so disorientated right now. That's where the camp was.
Yeah,
on that side,
yeah,
right?
exactly. How was the journey?
It was great.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Good.
When we left Troleng, we were teenagers, too young and too close to the experience to fully understand what our adventure meant to us. There were many unanswered questions. Now, in our 30s, this meeting is a chance to better understand all that we went through.
It feels like a homecoming, which is really weird. I didn't think it would at all. It's the shitter. Absolutely.
I need you to help. I was telling the crew how the crabs used to dig up the shit if you did it on the beach. But you always have to, it was much better to go and shit in the jungle.
Because most of mine was Giardia orientated, I can't remember the actual civilized way of doing it on a desert island.
Whoosh, I think, was the way it went, wasn't it?
Whoosh was my way, absolutely.
I feel so funny in my stomach.
Me too.
The relationship between the two characters in the Blue Lagoon was central to my dream. I wanted the same, which meant losing my virginity on my desert island to my own Brooke Shields, Rachel. But right from the start, things weren't looking too good. On the first night, Rachel insisted on sleeping in separate tents.
I'm not sure about any other male viewers that are watching this, but certainly to me, Rachel is an extremely attractive individual. So if I'm completely open and honest with you, I'll admit that it would be much, much, much nicer if we were making love. Perhaps not so much for the sexual reasons as for the companionship.
I'm not sure if you remember, but the first night we got here, I was so upset because you wouldn't sleep in the same tent as me.
I wouldn't?
No.
Why not?
Because, well, I'm not sure. You tell me. I didn't expect us to have sex on the first night or anything like that, but I kind of expected that we'd be in the same tent with one another. Are you going to stay in here with me tonight?
Would you mind?
I promise. I'll keep my hands to myself.
While things as they are as they are, and they are as they are, I can only be 50% sort of fully satisfied and happy with the situation.
I really feel you need a degree of comfort before sort of passion can set in. As it was, we were filthy, we were dirty, we were stinking. And just, for me, the real source, the sense of hunger, it's a fundamental need that needs to be met. You know, food, shelter, warmth. You need those three things before you can think about other desires.
Inevitably, with just two teenagers alone on an island, tensions sometimes ran high.
You can't see a thing.
I don't like the way you just order me into doing all this filming. I don't have a choice over what I do at all. I don't like doing this now. Until recently, I guess we could have described us as a relationship being amicable but volatile.
There is one thing, well, there are several things, obviously, which do get to me and niggle me. Swim around.
But you just told me to stay here. One small word, and the tension between us was phenomenal.
Can you keep still, please?
I'm trying to, but the tide's washing me away. I'm moving to try and keep in the same place.
Okay.
I'll just keep still.
Either I'm paying too much attention to her, and she's saying, oh, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone, you fuss too much, and going on like that.
Because all you'll do is make it into bits of me.
No, I won't.
You're always doing that.
I've done it once for a joke. And then I get accused of not caring, that I don't really care about her, that other things matter far, far more than her. Well, I'll do it, and then if you don't like it, you can rub it off, okay?
Yes, if I believe you'll do that, sure. Worth risking that, as long as you really do rub
yes.
it off.
It's just, honestly, you treat me like I'm such a shit.
Martin had the outcome already determined in his mind. I think as a consequence, he was a little bossier than he would be now. I was pretty obstinate reacting to that sense of being controlled. You're in somebody else's dream in some way. You no longer determine your own destiny. The overall big picture, Martin probably quite controlling and me very obstinate.
Looking back, I can see I let little stand in the way of making my fantasy come true. I never realised just how ill Rachel was. We now know she had salmonella and amoebic dysentery. She could have died.
Why didn't you tell me?
Because I was so goddamn terrified by it. I really was terrified by it, and because it continued. I mean, when I was lying in that hammock and you would see me like open my eyes for a little while, I had all the palm trees around me like demons leaning in on me like, we want you, we want you. I had phenomenal hallucinations. Half the time you were off somewhere else on the island and I felt really abandoned then. And I really did do the classic near-death experience. I did the tunnel of light and all that kind of stuff. I really felt that I was gone. It came to the crunch when we potentially needed to get off the island. I mean, that was a real dilemma. Desert island dream versus the safety or even the life
of the girl that I loved.
Yeah, I mean, that I think is a real challenge.
And for me, you know, I just to set the record straight, I did love you, and I was concerned, but I think you clearly illustrate there in that example just how we were kind of losing it, both of us, and me willing to take that risk, that I'd given up so much to get out of here, fought so hard to be here, and now Rachel was being ill, that could bring it all crashing down, and I was willing to take that risk.
I didn't want to jeopardize the dream, and it was part of the reason I came out, was to really test survival.
I remember this particular type of tree being really useful for building the house and making the framework on which we hung the thatch. And the number of these which I had to cut down and drag back out of the jungle, it was such hard work.
Have a song to sing.
This is a feeling of accomplishment, building the house.
We may have rowed, Rachel was ill. We didn't have sex, but we did share some beautiful moments which I'll never forget.
I keep missing. Whoa! Whoa!
Like hunting, building your own home out of the natural resources fulfills almost a primeval urge. It brought Rachel and I together and brought us closer to the island itself.
now declare this house officially open.
Amazing.
And we can go in. Oh.
Oh, air conditioning.
Our home was made complete with our pet cat brought from Mog Mog.
Right, the basic principle is sort of under, over,
That's it, and fit it through, over and under, until it was all the way along. See, I'd forgotten that.
I remember it as being a terrifically sort of therapeutic activity.
Like knitting.
Yeah, exactly, whiling your hours away doing this.
When I was with Helen, we never actually made a house.
Right.
And to me that was part of the desert island dream.
In many ways, I certainly felt that it didn't really begin until we had built the house. I mean, that was a really key part of it.
I kind of sensitive when we were when people had a go at the fact that we brought some supplies with us and saws and machetes, because it was like, how else do you expect us to survive on a desert island without at least the bare basics?
Right, and Crusoe, when he was shipwrecked, he had the shipwreck to plunder.
He had 2 shipwrecks to plunder.
Lucky chap, right.
That's really funny you remember that bit, because it was always my line of defence.
And probably if we were washed ashore with nothing, certainly on this particular island, we probably wouldn't have survived. But
you could probably just about do it, but it would be a pretty miserable existence.
And if you really liked coconuts and nothing else, sorry.
It's true.
Right.
You know, the whole island was always so alive and is so alive, but this part, more than any other, gave the feeling of being more alive. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I agree. I mean, just listening to the birds now brings it all back, and there's lizards that are scurrying away from us.
And I remember this particular tree really well, because it was this one that I used to come to when I'd exhausted all the other trees of coconut crabs. I remember coming deep into the jungle one night, looking for coconut crabs and getting totally lost and screaming my head off for you to come and get me.
A temporary dilemma, but yes.
What, as to whether to come or not?
Sorry. But I love the call that we have for each other that we learnt from the islanders.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
Well, this place feels like home at last. It's a really nice feeling. We went over to one of the other islands the other day to collect some food. And kind of like, without really thinking, I just, oh, we were going home now. And it really summed it up. Sort of, it means you're really settled here. You've got just about everything you want.
It might be hot. It's the safest I can manage.
Rachel and I now are so much closer than when we arrived. I just find it amazing just how close we are. It comes from doing everything with someone and always having to go to someone for a second opinion. But I now, having been here and having our lives interwoven for so long, cannot imagine life without Rachel. I suppose it's the desert island dream working.
There's a difference between us not having a sexual relationship, but I feel that there were real moments of romance between us. I remember just sitting up here on the shore, watching one of the terrific sunsets there, and you just quietly came up next to me, holding Mog Mog the cat, and didn't say a word, and just sort of handed me the cat. And we just watched it together, and that was blissful.
Actually, from sort of the last couple of days talking to you, that I've actually remembered a whole lot more of the good things. That's what I always wanted you to be in the beginning. It wasn't just a matter of just fancying you. I could see that stubbornness. It's quite funny, actually, when I was sort of having worries about whether you'd be coming out this time, and it's like, hang on a sec, Martin. This is Rachel. She said she's coming out, and she's going to bloody do it.
I mean, that's why I count you as a friend, so you always have that understanding about each other. Little things about the way you cough or the way I wriggle my toes while I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
I mean, that I think comes from the intimacy of what we're sharing.
But our dreams were coming to an end. Soon it would be time to return to reality. After more than 7 months living in the Ulithi atoll, our time as castaways was drawing to a close.
Well, our time here is very definitely coming to a rather rapid end. I find my mood very precariously balanced between intense happiness at going back to all those things and all those people that I've been missing and craving for so much whilst I've been out here. But then on the other hand, I'm even more sad than I'd ever thought about leaving this place. It's weird because since in the last few days when leaving has come so close, I suddenly started noticing things more and appreciating the beauty of everything even more than before.
I'm absolutely terrified of going back. Just with the sheer numbers of people, the sheer numbers of choices, the sheer hugeness of civilization. We have our own little island here. It's very encapsulated. We know what our resources are, and we know pretty well what a lot of our options are. When we go back to civilization, there's going to be just a massive increase in the number of options, in the number of choices, in the number of possibilities. I am more scared of doing that transition, knowing that in just over a week's time, I'm going to be in that from here, than I was coming out here the opposite way. I find it far more frightening.
Living as a castaway, you learn just how little you need to survive. It also makes you realise just how much we consume in the developed world. The effects of our lifestyles are being felt everywhere, but most painfully here.
One of the things I'm already noticing, and this is actually really depressing, is that one of the reasons my geography of the island is all a bit askew-if is because a lot of the island actually isn't here. Already, a lot of it seems to be being washed away.
All across the island, things seem to be changing. The vegetation is less dense. These coconut palms are dying because of the encroaching sea. Some predictions say islands like these will virtually disappear below the sea before the end of the century.
It's scary to think that what we're doing back in England and in other parts of the world could be leading to islands like this disappearing. Really depressing. Makes me sad, really sad.
For the people of Ulithi, global warming could mean the loss of their homes and their way of life. For me, it would mean the loss of the island where I discovered so much about life.
On the relationship front, things still aren't perfect. But I only think that's inevitable because in a situation like this, things are incredibly intense. There's just one other person. You have no one else. There's no one else to talk to let off steam to. You can't go and talk to someone else and say, by gum, Rachel, she just annoys me so much, because Rachel's the only other person here on the island. I think if we had been out here for much longer, things would have got better and better.
With a battery thing. You leave that alone.
You told me. Martin's posed me the question, does the desert island dream work? I think my immediate answer would be potentially yes. For us, we got so close, but I'm sure we didn't really get there. Perhaps on individual days, yes, but overall, we certainly haven't. The main reason I think we both feel is that time's just run out.
This is the diary spot where I did so many interviews to camera, talking about my sexual frustration and just how much I wished Rachel and I would be having sex with one another. It's kind of strange being back here in this same spot 12 years on, because things have changed an awful lot in my life. Rachel can finally breathe a sigh of relief because I'm a gay man now. And if I were coming back here again, then I'd be much more likely to come back here with a man Friday than a girl Friday. And it does strike me as just very ironic when you think about it. All those girls as a teenager that I was desperate to bring out here and live out my teenage Blue Lagoon fantasies with, that certainly in that respect, my fantasies are very different now. Looking back as a 30-year-old on the things that I did when I was 18 have made me cringe sometimes at my youth, but then I was young, and they are the kind of things that you do when you're young. They're not the kind of things that you necessarily do when you're 30. Certainly looking back over the experience over the last few weeks and months has made me realise how much I've grown up.
Agreeing to come back for our reunion here, just even the decision to do that opened up the whole window of understanding and remembrance of what a terrific time that we had here. It's been a really healing thing to do.
One of the questions I'm often asked is, would I do it again? And there's a very simple answer: definitely not. I had the most amazing experiences here, and it was a period of my life which defined me and made me the person that I am today. I could hack it as a castaway. I could survive here if I was shipwrecked, but I wouldn't want to. The sand between my toes is nice for one day, but no more. I've had too many nice meals in good restaurants in London to want to come back and eat coconuts day after day. I'm used to the fast-paced life of TV news. I would go crackers with boredom in the space of a week. I don't know how Rachel and I survived here for the length of time that we did. So I guess for me, the castaway dream ends here.